A child's perception of the world around them. A few years ago, I went for coffee with a cousin I had not seen for decades. He had contacted me through Facebook, and as soon as I saw his name, memories from my childhood began to surface. In my memory, he was tall, very tall. He was quiet, one of 4 brothers, and I never really remembered having a deep connection with him. Still, somewhere in my mind lived this image of a tall, almost imposing person from my childhood. So off I went to meet him, and when I arrived, I was genuinely surprised. He wasn't that tall at all. I remember looking at him and wondering how my memory could have been so different from the reality standing in front of me. Of course, the answer was simple. I had grown. But something about that moment stayed with me, because suddenly, it wasn't about his height anymore. It made me wonder, what else had I seen differently because I was looking through the eyes of a child? What else had seemed enormous? Who else had seemed powerful? Who had seemed kind? Who had frightened me? What words had I believed simply because an adult had spoken them? What experiences had shaped me before I was old enough to understand what was actually happening? That simple coffee opened a much deeper door. It brought me back to the little girl I once was. And this time, I was looking at her life through the eyes of the woman I had become, through the eyes of an adult, through the eyes of a mother, through the eyes of a soul that had already traveled through many experiences of this human life. A child sees the world differently. When we are children, we don't see the world as adults do. Everything is bigger. A house feels enormous. A garden can feel like an entire universe. A summer seems endless. An angry voice can feel terrifying. A loving embrace can feel like the safest place on earth. And adults can appear almost larger than life. We don't yet understand their wounds, fears, frustrations, choices, or limitations. We simply experience them. A child doesn't analyze love. A child feels love. A child doesn't understand emotional manipulation, unresolved trauma, insecurity, or control. A child only knows, I feel safe here, or I don't feel safe here. I feel seen. I feel invisible. I am loved. I need to work harder to be loved. I am allowed to speak. I should stay quiet. And slowly, without even realizing it, these experiences begin creating the foundation from which we see ourselves and the world. This is where some of our deepest beliefs are born. Children love unconditionally. Looking back at my childhood through my adult eyes made me understand something deeply. Children love with an incredible openness. We want to love. We want to belong. We want to feel protected. We want to be recognized. We want someone to look at us and say, without words, I see you. You matter. You are safe with me. It doesn't matter where a child is born, what culture surrounds them, what language they speak, what religion their family follows, or how much money they have. At the heart of a child lives the same longing. Love me, see me, protect me, let me belong. And because that longing is so powerful, children can sometimes hold tightly to the good moments, even when other parts of an experience were painful. We may remember someone's smile, a gift, a moment of affection, a day when they made us laugh, a time when we felt special. Those memories can become little islands of light inside us. But sometimes, when we return to our childhood with adult awareness, we discover there was more happening around those moments than we understood, and that can be difficult to accept. When childhood memory meets adult awareness. Memory is fascinating. It is not always a perfect recording of what happened. Sometimes our mind protects us from experiences we were not ready to understand. Sometimes certain moments remain vivid, while others become distant or fragmented. Sometimes we remember the feeling more strongly than the event itself. This doesn't mean every childhood memory is false. It means our childhood perception was created through the emotional and mental capacity we had at that age. We saw the world from much closer to the ground, literally and emotionally. Someone we remember as tall and fearless may, through our adult eyes, appear very different. Someone we remember as incredibly powerful may have been deeply insecure. Someone we experienced as kind and caring may, when viewed through adult awareness, have also used control or manipulation. Someone we thought did not love us may have loved us deeply, but lacked the emotional ability to show it. Life is rarely completely black or white. Human beings carry light and shadow. And when we begin healing, we slowly become able to hold both. Seeing the little you again. There comes a moment in life when we may need to turn around and meet the child we once were. Not to remain trapped in the past, not to blame everyone, not to spend the rest of our lives analyzing every childhood event, but to understand ourselves. Imagine for a moment that you could sit beside your younger self. Really look at them. What do you see? Is that child joyful, curious, wild, creative, sensitive, fearless, quiet, lonely, always trying to make everyone happy, always trying to be perfect, trying not to cause trouble, trying desperately to be noticed? What happened to that child as life unfolded? Did you lose some of your joy? Did you lose your confidence? Did you learn to hide parts of yourself because someone made you believe they were unacceptable? Did you become angry because things happened that you could not understand? Do you feel unheard today because you often felt unheard as a child? Do you struggle with rejection because love once felt uncertain? Do you constantly prove your worth because somewhere along the way you learned that simply being yourself wasn't enough? Do you find it difficult to trust, to receive love, to say no, to set boundaries, to rest without guilt? Sometimes what we call our personality is partly a collection of survival strategies we learned a very long time ago. And perhaps healing begins when we become curious about them. Your inner child is not your enemy. The inner child is sometimes spoken about as though it is a damaged part of us that needs to be fixed. I see it differently. I believe the child within us also carries something incredibly precious. Our original spark. Before the expectations, before the disappointments, before people told us who we should be, before we learned to compare ourselves, before fear began limiting our choices. There was curiosity, wonder, imagination, play, trust, joy, the ability to be completely present. A child can watch an ant carrying a crumb for 10 minutes and be fascinated. A child can dance without wondering whether anyone thinks they look ridiculous. A child can create an entire world from a cardboard box. A child knows how to live in the present moment in a way many adults spend years trying to relearn through meditation. Perhaps inner child healing is not only about healing pain. Perhaps it is also about recovering what was beautiful. The soul behind the human experience. From my spiritual perspective, our soul chooses this human journey for a reason. We arrive here to experience, to feel, to learn, to grow, to make choices, to love, to lose, to fall, to rise, to remember. And eventually, when this human journey is complete, we return home and continue the journey of the soul. If we look at life through this spiritual lens, our experiences become teachers. That doesn't mean painful experiences were good. It doesn't mean we should excuse harmful behavior. And it certainly doesn't mean we should remain in situations that hurt us. Spirituality should never be used to silence pain. For me, spirituality gives us another question to ask. What can my soul create from what I have experienced? We may not have chosen every event that happened to us, but as adults, we can begin choosing what we do with what remains inside us. That is where responsibility becomes powerful. Not responsibility for what happened to the child, responsibility for how we care for that child within us today. Having a conversation with your little you. Our childhood is the beginning of this human life. It is where so many foundations are laid. That is why I believe it is never too late to check in with your little you. You don't need to force memories. You don't need to have all the answers. You can simply become curious. Sit somewhere quiet. Close your eyes. Breathe. Imagine yourself as a child. Maybe you see yourself at 5 years old, maybe 8, maybe 12. Don't judge what appears. Simply observe and ask, how are you? What do you need me to know? What frightened you? What made you happy? When did you feel most free? When did you stop believing in yourself? What do you need from me now? Perhaps the answer is love. Perhaps protection. Perhaps permission to play. Perhaps a boundary. Perhaps forgiveness. Perhaps simply, please listen to me. Sometimes this journey can bring painful memories or emotions to the surface. When that happens, seeking proper guidance or professional support can be an act of strength and self-love. We do not have to walk through every dark room alone. Healing changes the energy we carry. There is something I believe deeply. When we begin healing the child within us, something changes. Not because our history disappears, it doesn't. The past remains part of our story, but it no longer has to hold the pen. We begin writing from a different place, and slowly, a new energy can emerge. New energy. Because we are no longer spending so much energy protecting old wounds. New confidence. Because we begin recognizing that our worth was never determined by how others treated us. New self-love. Because we stop waiting for someone else to give the child within us the love we can finally offer ourselves. New self-leadership. Because instead of reacting automatically from old patterns, we begin choosing consciously. New compassion. Because when we understand our own wounds, we often become more capable of seeing the humanity in others without abandoning our own boundaries. This is where healing becomes transformation. The past does not have to define the future. Whatever we went through as children does not have to define who we become as adults, no matter our age. You can be 30, 50, 70, or 90 and still discover something new about yourself. There is no expiry date on awareness, no expiry date on healing, no expiry date on joy, no expiry date on choosing differently. You cannot go back and change what happened, but you can change the relationship you have with what happened. You can look at the child you once were and say, I see you now. I hear you now. You don't need to earn my love. You don't need to be perfect. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to speak. You are allowed to be joyful. You are allowed to become who you truly are. And perhaps one of the most beautiful parts of healing is realizing that the child never completely disappeared. They were simply waiting underneath the responsibilities, disappointments, achievements, relationships, fears, and expectations of adulthood. Waiting for you to come home. Maybe it is time to look again. That coffee with my cousin taught me something I never expected. A man who had seemed so tall when I was little suddenly wasn't tall at all. And that simple realization became a doorway. If my perception of something so simple could change, what else could I look at again? What else had I carried into adulthood without questioning it? What old beliefs were still directing my choices? what belonged to me, and what had been placed upon me. Perhaps we all carry people inside our memories who are still taller than they really are. People whose words still have power over us. People whose approval we are still trying to earn. People we still fear disappointing. And perhaps healing is partly about seeing them again through adult eyes, seeing ourselves again too. Not through shame, not through blame, but through awareness, through compassion, through truth, and through love. Because when we bring light into the places within us that have remained hidden, we don't erase the child we once were. We finally meet them. And when we meet that child with the wisdom of the adult we have become, something beautiful can happen. The child gives us back our wonder. The adult gives the child safety. The child gives us back our joy. The adult gives the child a voice. The child reminds us how to dream. The adult finally has the power to choose. And somewhere between the two, we become more whole. Life is a journey. Each morning arrives as another invitation, another opportunity, another possibility to make a different choice, take a different action, and create a different result. Your childhood may be the first chapter of your story, but it does not have to write the ending. Maybe today is the day to sit beside the little person you once were. Listen, hold their hand, and whisper, "I see you. I hear you. You are safe with me now. Let's continue this journey together." Because perhaps healing the inner child isn't about becoming someone new at all. Perhaps it is about remembering the beautiful, powerful soul that was there from the very beginning. Blessings.